Okay, welcome everyone. It's 2 o'clock. We'll get our August 9th council meeting underway. And with that, I'll call the meeting to order. First item on our agenda is to, of course, adopt the agenda for today's meeting. And I have a recommendation here that the agenda for the August 9th, 2021 regular meeting of council be accepted and passed. Could I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to disclosure of pecuniary interest. I have none to declare today on anything on today's agenda. Sherry?
No.
Okay, Lisa?
No.
And Steve?
No.
Okay, thank you. We have a few presentations this afternoon. Karen, I heard you say that Michael was not with us. Is that?
He is now.
Okay.
So I'm going to move him into the meeting.
Okay.
And he's just coming up there now.
And did you have a little intro?
Michael, are you able to hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you, Karen.
Oh, there we go. There's Michael. Okay, so I just wanted to introduce Michael Meunier. He's our new project lead for our New Horizons program. And Michael lives in Elora with his wife 30 years, and they've recently adopted a 3.5-year-old German Shepherd. And where was that from, Michael?
Yeah, he came from a long way off, Cairo, Egypt.
Yeah, fascinating. He retired in June 2020 after 20 years of teaching grades 8 to 10, and 19 years of that was at Waverly Drive in Guelph. Michael has a master's degree from University of Calgary in curriculum teaching and learning, and he particularly enjoys being part of teams that start up new programs, which makes him an excellent fit for our New Horizons program. So Michael is going to explain the program to us and sort of outline what his plans are.
Thanks for that, Karen. Yeah, I'll get right to it. So the New Horizons project for technology, training, and support for seniors. Our target audience, seniors in North Wellington. Those of them who are interested in trying to become a little bit more gadget smart when using handheld technology. And for our program in particular, we're going to use iPads. It'll be a series of peer-led workshops delivered in person by me. We're going to run them between 11 a.m. to noon. And we've just been spending time in July trying to get venues booked and scheduled, and that worked out well. We're going to be in Drayton on Mondays, Mount Forest on Tuesdays, Palmerston on Thursdays, and in Arthur on Fridays. And as I said, all starting in and around different dates in September. We have those venues booked. It's the CNRA Clubhouse in Palmerston. It's the arenas in Arthur and Mount Forest. And we're going to be in the Mapleton Health Center boardroom in Drayton. And in running that program, we see up to as many as 10 seniors at a time. Novices are completely welcome. We're trying to stress that. And participants may attend any or all sessions. So we may have some repeat customers, some real keeners, and I'm kind of ready for those folks, as well as complete novices. Our 5 broad categories, we're going to try and help them get a little bit up to speed in. Safe online practices, avoiding email and phishing scams. How do you identify those? Some of the realities of online fraud and how seniors may in particular be targets. How to connect with peers and family through email and social media apps. And coming out of whatever wave of the pandemic, I think we've seen how it can be scary to have a bunch of seniors that we care for and love isolated and unable to reach out for us through social media or other simple apps. And then how do they access some government services online to try and help them in that regard? Stressing the fact we're offering these workshops at no cost, and participants will have their own individual iPad to work with during any given workshop, but they can't keep it. They're just using it in the session, of course. We've already had one question from a gentleman. Would he be able to bring the iPad home and practice with it during the week? So we had to tell him no, can't do that. To market and promote this program and that side of this project is completely new to me, but I had a lot of help from Chanda and Dale and Karen and Mandy trying to figure out how we're going to market this. And what we've done so far, I just sent out a program description to a bunch of the senior residences, churches, and libraries in the area. I also had that project description posted on our township website, but that's not necessarily going to help attract our customers who may be complete computer novices. So to try and attract those folks, printed off some flyers, and they'll be distributed at the sidewalk Saturdays. We have the one upcoming on August 14th in Mount Forest and the other one on September 11th in Arthur. So we can get a piece of paper with all the program descriptors in some folks' hands. We did a radio interview on 88.7 The River that began running on Monday, July 26th. And we have a print ad ready to go in the North Wellington Community News, be a half-page vertical oriented ad. And we'll run that August 12, 19, 26, and September 2nd in those editions. Considering supplementary program delivery, I'm creating a Google Classroom. It's under construction. And first things first, if we get some of these seniors in, how do we orient them to using an iPad? And then if they don't have an email, which I assume a bunch of them won't, we'll get a Gmail account. I'll help them set that up. Then they can enter this Google Classroom, and that'll be like the virtual learning environment where at their own pace, with my guidance, they can figure out a whole bunch of lessons that I'm just putting in there online. That might be a good model too, if we do see an inevitable 4th and 5th wave of COVID, and they can still maintain some connection with me and with the program doing some online lesson work if it comes to that. But primarily we want to deliver this program in person. And that's kind of where we're at. That's the quick update. Any questions?
Okay. Questions for Michael?
I'm good, thank you, Andy.
Okay. Anybody else?
Is this program open to all employees of Wellington North?
Yeah, Karen's been a little bit of my guinea pig student. I've signed her up as a student in the Google Classroom just so she can have a look at how the layout looks. And yeah, for sure, there's a lot of us who need some of these general reminders how not to get hooked by a phishing scam and just, media literacy. Like, where do you go to find basic information? So yeah, that's funny, but true, Karen.
Thank you, Michael.
Anybody else have questions? When I first started reading about the program, I thought, boy, maybe this is a fit for me. I'm so used to using the handheld devices now that I went back to my desktop computer to do some work, and I had to scratch my head to remember how to do it.
Oh, I know.
So it is different using the handheld devices certainly than the old PC or MacBook or whatever you're familiar with. And it really struck me how quickly I lost the old routine. So I wish you luck, Michael, with the project. I hope there's lots of seniors that take you up on it and that they're able to find it useful for their daily lives.
Yeah, certainly. There's huge potential here. We just need to get the bums in the seats, and hopefully with our promotion and marketing, we'll be able to get some folks. And then I think it could just snowball. They'll tell a friend, come to next week's session. So it may be not the smoothest start, especially with COVID still hanging in the air. And we're back up to like almost 400 cases in Ontario. So we're going to have to see. But yeah, there's huge potential and there's a huge need for it for sure.
And maybe some old-fashioned social networking vis-a-vis the telephone might get the word out better than just about anything.
Yeah, you're so right.
Any other questions or comments from council? Okay, thanks very much, Michael.
All right, thank you.
Good luck.
Bye. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Okay, next up we have a couple of presentations, and I think Dale, you're going to do a little intro for these.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lennox. I'd like to introduce summer student Morgan to council. Morgan has been working with us in an admin support position this summer at the office in Kenilworth. Morgan's a graduate of the University of Waterloo and has a degree in social development and history, and has also spent time working at the Waterloo Region Museum. Her passion for historical research led her to the completion of these two presentations that we're going to share with you. Morgan first shared these presentations to our cultural roundtable last month, and the roundtable was super supportive of the work that Morgan had done and asked her to present them to council as cultural moments. So normally we would have a cultural moment at the end of council. What we've decided to do today is to move the cultural moment to the start of council and have Morgan deliver it for us. So Morgan, I see you've got your camera on. I'm going to turn it over to you, and thanks for doing this for us.
Thanks, Dale. I am in the office, so you might hear phones in the background. And I don't think it's affecting Kathy, but hello. All right, I'm going to screen share now. I did two presentations. The first one is on surveys and the historic ones that shaped our township, especially in regard to First Nations. And the second one is on Mount Forest that came to me through a little bit of research on the cemetery. So I'll do that right now. All right. Oh, my computer froze. Oh, here we go. All right. So surveying the historic Arthur Township and Village of Arthur, the peoples and treaties that shaped us. So this here is probably a pretty familiar image for a lot of you. It's actually located on the Hunter's Tax Management Office near the southern entrance of the town of Arthur. And it depicts a family getting their location papers, papers that entitled them to 50 free acres along the Garifraxa Road. I think for many of us, this is where our understanding of history begins, especially local history. And, you know, when we think of our local history, we think of brave settlers setting out to tame the land. And while they are very brave and did set out into what was unknown to them at the time, our history actually starts a lot earlier than this. So treaties actually shaped a lot of our township. So treaties are agreements made between the Indigenous peoples and the Crown, which allowed for the creation of countries, counties, townships, and Canada. So currently today, most of Wellington North resides on Treaty 45.5. So let's see here. Sorry. So oh, here we go. So here's Treaty 45.5. So we are kind of over in this area here. And two other treaties, 3 and 18, created the boundaries of what was the Township of Arthur and continue to create boundaries in modern day North Wellington. The star on the map. Oh, my computer's froze. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm frozen. There we go. There we go. I got it. Okay. The star on the map is where Wellington 109 and Highway 6 meet in Arthur by the Tim Hortons. So you can see that's a pretty central location of a lot of treaties. So Treaty 3, I have no idea why this is still up. I don't know. Okay. So Treaty 3 between the lakes. So we're going to begin our story with Treaty 3 because it is through this treaty that our earliest boundaries are established and the first surveyors arrive in what would become Arthur Township. We actually have a mural in the town of Arthur today that makes reference to the peoples involved in Treaty 3. Can you think of which one that is? I'll ask you at the end. So Treaty 3 is created after the American Revolutionary War when the British Crown purchased 3 million acres of land from the Mississauga peoples for the Six Nations peoples in repayment for their military alliance. So the Six Nations were in America and they were given this allotment of land in thanks for their alliance. And they settled along the Grand River, and this was later broken into further treaties, some of which you may have heard of. So the Huldsman Tract is a common one you may have heard of. But has anyone thought of which mural in Arthur represents Treaty 3? Does anyone have an idea? I can't see people, so. Just say if you know.
Be the Jones survey one.
Yeah, it's the survey one. Oh, again, I'm froze. Sorry. Here we
The
go.
cultural roundtable, by the way, was able to answer that immediately.
Yeah, they were really good. They knew a lot of stuff. So Treaty 3 and the Huldsman Proclamation. So the man in this mural is Augustus Jones, the man with the hat there. And in 1792, he pushed north from Burlington towards the Conestoga River with a group of Six Nations surveyors. They established one of the earliest survey lines in what is now Wellington North, called Jones Baseline. This baseline was used in defining the boundaries of townships and still is today. Augustus Jones and Mohawk Chief Joseph Brant were actually good friends. So Joseph Brant's the First Nations man here down on the bottom, and they often worked surveying together. And Jones eventually married a woman from Brant's nation. So we can see now that the Mississauga of the Credit and the Six Nations of the Grand River have been confined to a much smaller space than their traditional and rightful territories. So where the red is here, sorry. So this is all Treaty 3, right? And then this is where they are today. And so this here is the Huldsman Tract. Just get rid of those before we move on. So Treaty 18 is next. This treaty line runs up County Road 14 and is used to divide the Township of Arthur from Luther, what was Luther Township. Therefore, a small portion of our county now falls under Treaty 18. This agreement was made between the Chippewa of Lake Huron and Simcoe and the government of Upper Canada. So there's County Road 14, it's right on the line. So Treaty 18 is kind of a sticky one because we don't actually have any written evidence of this surrender of land, only what the Crown later wrote about it. The Chippewa had previously signed and agreed to share land with European settlers, but white settlement was pushing them further out of their traditional lands. Today, they occupy Georgina Island and number about 500 people. What was said about them by the government when this treaty was signed to justify their kind of push was, culturally, they have already contributed everything that was valuable for our own civilization beyond what knowledge we may still glean from their histories. And so then Treaty 45 and a half, this is the one that we occupy quite a bit of. It was signed in 1836 by representatives of the Crown and certain Anishinaabe peoples, and the territory covers 1.5 million acres of land. Under this treaty, they were to surrender their land and head north of Owen Sound. Basically, they were paid with government protection for about 1.5 million acres of land if they settled in the Bruce Peninsula. Under this treaty, there was to be no colonization of the Bruce Peninsula, meaning it is unceded land. Today, these people are known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, and the town of Arthur and a large part of our township sits on Saugeen Ojibwe on traditional territories. So you can see Arthur's right there at the bottom. So again, County Road 14, there's where the treaties are and where we are. And so some towns under this treaty: Mount Forest, Walkerton, Kincardine, Thornbury, Collingwood, Hanover, Durham, and then Arthur and Kenilworth. So after treaty lines were drawn and parcels of land divided, what is Wellington North could be open to settlers. In 1837, surveying began with Charles Rankin surveying a route from Oakville to Owen Sound. And this was temporarily halted, however, by some rebellions. The District of Wellington kicked off surveying again in 1840, and John MacDonald set out to survey Luther Township and establish lots along the Garifaxa. What was recently surrendered Saugeen territory would become what is Arthur Township. The Garifaxa is so windy because Rankin had tried to follow high grounds, and is assumed he also used former First Nation trails as well. And then when MacDonald resurveyed them, he did make them a little straighter, but ultimately Rankin's route was followed pretty closely. So, oh, I think I went too far. There we go. Yeah. So then the Chief Nawash is on the bottom right here, and he actually is the man who named the Saugeen River, and he helped survey with Rankin. Rankin is on the bottom left, and the top is John McDonald. Arthur Township has some of the coldest and shortest growing seasons of southern Ontario, and it wasn't preferred by colonists. Therefore, the government issued free grants along the Garifaxa Road, which is what we saw in the very first slide with the land papers. So long, narrow 50-acre lots were given on the condition that 4 acres must be cleared at the front every 4 years. The lots became available in October of 1840. And then there's some thoughts on why the Garifaxa got its name, and the Cultural Roundtable actually gets this too. They're really knowledgeable. So one thought is that it's a mispronounce of sassafras, a remedy for poison ivy, and another theory is that it is a First Nation term for panther country. That kind of brings us to where we started with the settler history. And yeah, that's my talk on treaties and how they kind of shaped our modern township. Okay, I'm just gonna stop.
You want to share your screen there just for a sec, but then you can see people. There you go.
Yeah. Does anyone have anything to add or corrections or comments or anything? Sorry, my camera's weird. No? Okay, that's cool. Oh,
Steve-
yeah.
Steve,
Steve.
Thanks for this. This is pretty enlightening stuff, and I love history, and especially I love our local history. So how far did you have to dig back for some of these documents? They look like scans of fairly old parchment, and then the pictures as well, Morgan. Great presentation altogether as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was definitely a task tracking some of this down. I asked the archives and stuff, and even they're working on expanding what they have as well. The government websites were pretty informative, interestingly enough, in finding some of these, but you really have to look for a lot of them in the maps and everything. Yeah.
Very cool.
Thanks. Okay.
other questions or comments for Morgan? I guess everybody wants to wait till the end, Morgan.
It's okay. It's cool. Okay, I'll do the other one. Hang on. Sorry, my stuff is freezing here.
Do you want me to pull them up, Morgan, and you can just tell me when to move ahead on the slides?
That would actually be good because my computer keeps freezing.
Okay, let me open the.
Thank you.
Okay.
I promise you I don't need Michael's class. I have a really slow computer.
I thought we were going to hear a pitch for a new computer system.
Oh, we are. We are. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Maureen, you just tell me when to advance the slides.
Okay, you can go to the next one. So this is kind of a little story of how Mount Forest became a town. And as you can imagine, this information was a lot easier to find than my first presentation. And it was through some research on the cemetery and helping Kathy and Karen with that I found some of these stories. So yeah, I hope you enjoy them. So you can go to the next one. So the Maitland. So John McDonald, this is all kind of taking right up where we left off. He's the first surveyor for the Canada Land Company, and he's really the first to refer to this land. At Fairbanks Creek, he drew a reserve for a village and marked it a good mill site, stream 97 links across. And so links are a historical measurement that I am not exactly sure what they represent numerically. And a bridge was constructed over the Maitland, and early settlers would refer to this as Maitland Hills or Maitland Woods. Okay. So they start to want, they want to name the settlement, right? So how Mount Forest kind of gets its name is it's a blending of both Maitland Hills and Maitland Forest. And in 1953, it's the postmaster who's the first to use this name. And by 1853, there was a post office, grist and flour mill, and the senator's house on Waterloo Street. It was actually the senator and looking at his memorial in the graveyard that kind of started this research. So that's kind of neat. So this is James Mcmullen, and if you've ever been to our cemetery, which I imagine many of you have, there's that giant cenotaph building. I think it's mausoleum, cenotaph, and that's where he's buried with several of his family members. But he's born in Ireland and he migrated to Canada West in 1846. He actually went to Fergus first. And he studied to be a general store merchant. And he had one of the first stores in Mount Forest, and he was called to the Senate in 1902. He was also the first man in Mount Forest to have an automobile, which is kind of neat. Okay. So here's the first log cabin, or this is a very early log cabin in Mount Forest. It's not the image isn't necessarily the very first one, but it's similar. So Richard Chaloner was the first to build a log cabin in the village in 1853, and he actually came from Queensbush settlement, so around Priceville area. He was a blacksmith, so he brought his family here hoping to expand. He had been born in Wales before he was living in Queensbush. And yeah, he establishes the Mount Forest Agricultural Society in 1856, which is pretty interesting considering they've barely been on the map and they have an agricultural society. And he has two sons, Llewellyn and Leonidas, who are important to my story a little later on. So in 1853, the town plots are surveyed and laid out by Francis Kerr. Okay, so it becomes a village. So in 1860s Upper Canada, if there was an incorporated village of 750 people and a petition was taken of not less than 100 resident freeholders and householders, the councils of the counties in which the village is situated could enact a bylaw to incorporate the place as a village. So by 1864, the population of Mount Forest was 1,185, and two petitions took place, one to join Grey County and one to join Wellington. The first council meeting was January 15th, 1865 in Smith's Hotel with David Yeomans as Reeve, Thomas Smith, Dr. Samuel Dunbar, John Naismith, and John Jebb as councillors. So it's so that basically they want to join two different counties and their first choice is Grey County. However, it ends up kind of being a fluke that just Wellington gets back to them faster on their application to join their counties. And however, they did want Grey County just because the largest portion of the village at the time was in Grey County and 3/4 of inhabitants lived there and all of the councillors lived in Grey County. So in the 1860s, Mount Forest is a pretty booming place. They got lots of growth. There's 9 churches already, 5 hotels, and a common school that's already overfilling. So they're going to have to build another school. And Hewitt's Hotel on Main Street and Main and Queen Street had an assembly hall attached to the side for public gatherings. Apparently Coin House used to have gold lettering, which is the bottom picture here, used to have giant gold lettering on the sidewalk, which would be really cool for the time. Yeah, and so David Yeomans and Lawrence Yeomans, who were in the last thing, they're buried in our cemetery. And they're on the slide here. All right. Okay, so this is an image of what it's looking like in 1860. You have to click again, Karen. So, well, it's a booming town and it's very prosperous. It's not without crime. So in April of 1868, Dr. Samuel Dunbar, Sam Wilson, and Leonidas Chalner, the son of the early blacksmith, they're walking home from the general store and they've been drinking. At some point, the Leonidas Chalner falls over and he is struck in the head by Dr. Samuel Dunbar with a crutch. He has a broken leg from another controversial event, and he dies from getting hit in the head with a crutch just on the main street. And essentially they take him to the hotel and they just leave him there overnight and then assess that he's dead in the morning. And the doctor had to actually go to the jail in Guelph for this, and he was eventually freed on the premise that perhaps this Leonidas already had some sort of head problems before this happened. And yeah, outside of the Mount Forest community, they all thought he like got off way too easy, but in the community, they were glad to have a doctor back. Okay. So then the railway that comes to Mount Forest in 1870, which really opens it up to the rest of the world and brings a lot of industry. In 1870, Reeve John Robinson receives a telegram from the secretary of the Toronto, Grey and Bruce Railway saying that a railway is to be built to Mount Forest and construction will cost about $700 a mile. The work gang boarded at Coyne's Hotel and stabled their horses there as well. John Naismith was a teamster who would drive to Guelph twice a week to take produce to sell in exchange for goods to a store. And he actually was a huge help in this. He had 20 men prepare the roadway for building tracks into Mount Forest. And in 1871, the village welcomed its first railway car, officially opening in December of 1870. So at this point, it's possible for citizens to take a round trip to Toronto in one day, and it costs $2.60, which is neat. Okay. So in the 1870s, it's really growing even more. You can see all the things they had. The town looks, you can see it shaping to what we know it to be today. Yeah. Okay. So Mount Forest becomes a town in 1879. The first inaugural address of Mayor Thomas Swan, things he talked about is they had a vacancy for the Board of High School Trustees. They needed an auditor for municipal accounts. They established a drainage system for the town, established a fire department and fire prevention, and they needed street lamps. It was also commented that a police system would be nice. However, the town is quite quiet, so they may not need a police. Okay. So yeah, the Ontario Gazetteer and Directory reports that in 1885, Mount Forest has 3 schools with 600 pupils, a mechanics institute with a library of 900 volumes, a town hall that seated 500, 2 banks, and 2 weekly newspapers, telephone services, stages running to Clifford, Con, Egerton, and Cedarville for 50 cents a day. So yeah, it's really, really taking off. And so then there's a picture of it in the 1880s. And then if you click again, you'll see what it looks like today, the same kind of street. Yeah, so that concludes my presentation on the town. Thank you so much for listening. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Morgan. Any questions, comments for Morgan?
Sorry, I'm really back.
Steve?
Just again, thanks very much for the this history of Mount Forest. There's some stuff in there that I did not know about, and it's interesting to see that. And I have seen the senator's mausoleum up in the cemetery on Sligo, and need to connect this all the way back to your presentation. So thanks again for that.
Thanks.
I like that their council chambers could seat 500 people. That's amazing.
Little different than this meeting.
Yeah.
Lisa, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. Thank you. Yeah, I did brag about your presentation, I think at our last council meeting, Morgan, because I witnessed it during listened to it during our cultural roundtable meeting. And I think I learned more this time than the first time. So that's great. And maybe you learned something from the cultural roundtable too. I know Bonnie, our resident cemetery expert, had a lot to add.
Yeah, she knew. They were very knowledgeable. They had a lot. It was really nice. It was nice to see that they were so engaged too.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, as a council, we spend a lot of time figuring out where we're going, and those are important things. But the best way to figure out where you're going is to also remember where you came from. So I would like to thank you for doing that, because it's an important process, I think, for council and for everyone.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to add? questions? I'd just like to add, oh, Sherry, go ahead.
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thanks, Morgan, for a history lesson this afternoon. Very nice to see, and there was a couple of things I learned as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Steve?
All right, just one thing popped into my head. Are we going to make this available on our home website, or even social media, like a link to it, so that people can click on it and see where we've come from?
We could certainly do that. And as well, Morgan was interviewed on the river. So she had talked about these projects. So we could certainly do that.
Perfect. I think it's more people than just us need to see this as well. So.
Yeah. So I just add my thanks, Morgan, as well. Yeah, there's always, every time I listen to one of these types of presentations, I always learn something new. And I find it especially good when you have the personal stories attached to it. It makes it fun, you know, gives us a sense of the people. And I find it remarkable how those stories have stood the test of time and they're still available and we can dig them up later on. I mean, it's quite remarkable.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Morgan.
And thanks, Dale, for giving me this opportunity to speak as well. It's a really great opportunity.
So I guess the next item on our agenda is to deal with a planning matter. So we'll recess to move into that planning application. So I've got a recommendation here. Excuse me, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North recess the August 9th, 2021 regular meeting of council for the purpose of holding a public meeting under the Planning Act for Lavalette Limited, care of Egan von Westerholt and von Westerholt Farms Limited. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Lisa, seconded by Steve. All those in favor? Carried. We're in recess, so we'll move into the public meeting. And with that said, I'll call the public meeting to order and ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest in regard to the item on this public meeting agenda. I don't have any to declare. Steve?
I have none, Andy.
Okay, Lisa?
No.
And Sherry?
No.
All right. So the owner applicant in this case is this is application 2021 zoning bylaw amendment, Lavalette Limited and von Westerholt Farms Limited. The land subject to the proposed amendment is described as part lot 26, concession 6 north, with a civic address of 8652 concession 6 south, I believe that should be. The property is 39.6 hectares in size, and the location, of course, is shown on the map in your package. The purpose and effect of the proposed amendment is to rezone the subject lands from agricultural zone to site-specific agricultural zone A2. This application is seeking to rezone the retained agricultural portion of the property to prohibit any future residential development. This rezoning is a condition of severance application B36/21, which will be heard by the Wellington County Land Division Committee in July 2021. The consent will sever 0.7 hectares parcel with an existing dwelling. A 39.5 hectare agricultural parcel would be retained with 2 storage sheds. How was notice given for this public meeting?
Notices were nailed to the property owners within 120 meters of the property and sent to the applicable agencies. Signage was posted on the property on July 9th, 2021.
Okay, thank you. Do we have somebody to do a presentation on this one today? Oh, Matthew, are you doing this one for us?
Yes, I am indeed.
Okay, welcome.
Notes and yes, good afternoon, everyone, on this beautiful afternoon. So again, thank you, and through you, Chair. So before you today is a zoning bylaw amendment to rezone the subject lands from agricultural to agricultural site specific. The applicant has received conditional approval on severance application B 3621 under the surplus farm dwelling policies. And as you may know, under these policies, a standard condition is placed to rezone the retained farmlands to prohibit future residential. So all in all, the application conforms to the zoning bylaw, the official plan, and as well as provincial policy, and planning staff have no concerns with the application. And I'll welcome any questions.
Great, thanks, Matthew. Has any further correspondence been received in respect to this application?
No, there has not, other than what is already listed on the agenda from Grand River with no objections.
Okay. Just want to advise anybody, the bylaw will be considered at the regular council meeting following the public meeting. Persons wishing notice of the passing of the bylaw must submit a written request. And with that said, I'll open the floor for any questions or comments. Jeff, are you representing the applicant in this case?
Yes, I am. Shall I speak for a minute?
Sure, if you have something you'd like to add, that'd be great.
There really isn't much to add. It's been presented fairly well. It's an approved severance for a surplus farm resident severance. The house is going to be separated out. The farm is going to be rezoned to not have a house. So I think everything's straightforward. I'm open to any questions. I want, as a side note, I appreciate the historic presentation earlier. As being a surveyor, and she referenced a lot of surveys. And just to let her know, 100 links in a chain, if she ever wanted to know what that meant. It's 100 links in a chain. A chain is about 20 meters long or 66 feet long. So you can do the math from there. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Jeff. Anybody else wish to speak to this application? You don't have anyone registered, correct, Karen?
That's correct.
Okay, so I'll open it up to council. Any questions, comments from members of council?
I have none, Andy. Straightforward application.
Okay. So I guess that brings us to the end of our public meeting. We will be dealing with the bylaw in our regular council agenda. And sorry, just excuse me. So I guess then the recommendation to adjourn that the public meeting of August 9th, 2021 be adjourned at 2:44 p.m. I need a mover and a seconder for that, please. Moved by Sherry, seconded by Lisa. All those in favor? That's carried. So we are adjourned from the public meeting. Thank you. We'll move back to our regular council meeting. And I have a recommendation here to resume our regular council meeting. And the recommendation is as follows, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North resume the August 9th, 2021 regular meeting of council at 2:44 p.m. Need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Steve, seconded by Lisa. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we have the bylaw coming out of that public meeting to deal with. So I'll read the recommendation there. That bylaw number 77-21 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 66-01 being a zoning bylaw for the Township of Wellington North. We read it first, second, and third time and enacted. This in regard to part lot 26, concession 6 north with a civic address of 8652 concession 6 south. Which is this? North or south? It's south, is it not? Karen?
I'm just looking, just a sec. Agenda out. It is concession 6 south.
Yeah, okay.
That's the civic address. I think Darren wanted to just offer on the legal. Go ahead, Darren.
Okay, that's great.
There's a typo in the legal description. It's north part lot 26.
Okay, but the
north
civic
goes with
address.
the lot.
Okay, but it is the civic address concession 6 south. Okay, so
Yep.
just the reference then is north part lot 26 concession 6 with a civic address of 8652 Concession 6 South. This is for Level It Limited, care of Egan von Westerholt and von Westerholt Farms Limited. I need a mover and a seconder for that recommendation, please. Moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve. Any discussion on that one? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Brings us to adoption of the minutes from the council meeting of July 26th. Recommendation here that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on July 26th, 2021 be adopted as circulated. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Lisa, seconded by Steve. Any questions, comments in regard to those minutes? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. That brings us to items for consideration. Pull out any of those items we wish to have some further discussion on, please. Lisa, go ahead.
2A for sure. Kind of thought 2F and G maybe kind of together if that's possible. And
So 2A, just sorry, second 2A, this is the CCR Holdings bylaw amendment.
Yep.
And what was the other ones? Sorry, I'm a little.
2F and G, those are the ExploreNet.
Okay. The towers.
From 3A,
And 3A,
the economic development.
Digital Main Street. Okay. Anybody have others?
I had those two, the 2A and 2F pulled as, or one of those pulled as well, so I'm good with the suggestions so far.
Okay. Sherry, did you have any others you wished to pull out?
No, thank you.
Okay. I'd like to add 1B to the mix as well. This is the Cultural Roundtable minutes. So again, just to recap, we've got 1A, 1B, 2A, 2F, 2G, and 3A. And any one last call for any others? Okay. So we'll deal with all the others. And the recommendation is as follows: that all items listed under items for consideration on the August 9th, 2021 council agenda, with the exception of those items identified for separate discussion, be approved, and the recommendations therein be adopted. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So that brings us back to 1A. This is the Arthur BIA Association. Recommendation reads as follows: that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the minutes of the Arthur Business Improvement Association meeting held on July 21st, 2021. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Lisa, seconded by Steve. We'll open the floor for discussion. Lisa, do you want to kick us off here?
I pulled 2A, not 1A. So...
Oh, sorry. That's my mistake then.
You're entitled.
Okay. So anything for this one then? We pulled it by mistake, or I did. Okay.
I'm good.
Okay, then I'll just call the motion then. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks for your patience, everybody. We'll move on to 1B. This is the Wellington North Cultural Roundtable Committee. A recommendation here that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the minutes of the Wellington North Cultural Roundtable Committee meeting held on July 22nd, 2021, and the Master Cultural Plan Update Community Survey results. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that one, please?
Sure.
Moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry. Okay, and open the floor for discussion. And I guess since I'm the one that asked for this one to be pulled, I'll start us off. I just wanted to, I was reading through the report, particularly with regard to the master cultural plan update, and was finding the survey results quite interesting. The prominence of the festivals and events really struck me. Certainly underlines for me the importance of opportunities for people to get together socially and interact with one another. Certainly that's come to the forefront over the last year. We recognize how much we miss getting together with each other and sharing a story and having some fun. So I think it's really interesting, and I'm looking forward to the final report, and looking forward to what we can do to help us move forward to continue to strengthen the culture that that's been built in our communities. And, you know, even starting with the stories we heard earlier tonight, or to this afternoon, I mean. So just looking forward to what comes out of that, and it's always a learning experience for me. Dale, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, just a quick thing, Mayor Lennox, through you, and thank you for pulling that, and thank you for your comments, because I think the results of the survey, exactly as you said, show how important it is that we have these types of activities and events for our community to be able to come together and celebrate certain events. So I know the results were probably impacted by COVID because everyone's missing the fact that we haven't been able to do it, but I think it does stress the importance of it. We're hoping to have the cultural plan to council probably within the next couple of months. So we would hope to see it sometime September, probably October. So it will come back at that point in time with some recommendations from the Cultural Roundtable for moving forward. But I also want to thank this council for how much support you've given the Cultural Roundtable when it comes to recognizing and celebrating the culture of the community and all the things that we do have. Having the cultural moment as a standard agenda item is a fairly important signal to people of how important culture is to the community. So just wanted to recognize that as well.
Yeah, I think it's the glue that ties us all together, isn't it?
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, I'll call the motion then. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to 2A. This is the planning report with regard to the zoning bylaw amendments, and I'll read the recommendation. The Council of Corporation of the Township of Wellington North received the planning report prepared by Matthew Daou, planner, dated July 14th, 2021, regarding CCR Holdings, Wells Street Inc. zoning bylaw amendment, and further that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North refused the application in light of the outstanding request for additional information and the failure of the application to address the concerns that were raised as recommended by the planner. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Sherry, seconded by Lisa. Open the floor for discussion. Go ahead, Sherry.
So my question is, we're going to deny this application. What are the ramifications moving forward? Are they going to be able to reapply? I guess is my question.
Okay. Who would like to tackle that one? Mike?
I was gonna, offer some comment, and I think Curtis can probably clarify it a little bit. We've heard from the property owners, kind of informally, that the intent is not to move ahead with this particular application. But I think Councillor Burke's question is a good one as it relates to kind of, well, what if somebody else purchased a similar building in a similar location? Would they be able to apply for a zoning amendment? And I'll maybe look to Curtis to speak to that as it relates to process.
Okay. Curtis?
Thank you, Mayor Lennox. Good afternoon, everyone. In terms of ultimately, if a decision is denied by council, an applicant under the Planning Act could have a right of appeal. and they could choose to file an appeal with the LPAT. In terms of filing other applications, I guess an applicant could file a similar application. However, if it was in the same lack of information and lack of other supporting materials, it'd be something that council could consider. And I don't know if it would be a successful either if that information was also missing to support the application.
Did you have something further, Sherry?
No, not right now.
Okay. Other questions in regard to this one? Comments? Okay, I personally am in support of refusing it. There was quite a number of issues that remained outstanding and challenges associated with this type of application, and I think we need to look for opportunities to better address these should they come forward in the future. But I think for now we need to refuse this application and look for those ways that we can better address this emerging topic as we go forward. So. Any other questions, comments? Okay. So with that said, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So move on to 2F now. This is ExploreNet correspondence with regard to a tower. I'll read the recommendation that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive ExploreNet correspondence dated June 21st, 2021 regarding proposed 45 meters self-support tower at 8316 line 6, Township of Wellington North. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that one, please? Moved by Steve, seconded by Lisa, and I'll open the floor for discussion. Okay, you're both at the same time. I'm going to go to Lisa first.
Go ahead, Lisa.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, I just asked for both of them to be pulled because it is good news. It sounds like maybe it'll give the mayors better internet. You're pretty close to one. I don't know whether we know though the details about the tower. Not that I'm questioning anything about it, but I'm just wondering whether they're capable of the 50 megabits per second that some of the other ones offer. I know the one that I'm on, which is what I guess I call the Petherton Tower. It's not capable of 50, but I'm much happier with the other one than with this one than the other one due to the stability. But yeah, this is good news.
Okay. Other questions, Steve?
I just had one, and I don't know who to address this to. The self-supporting tower, will it have like guidelines down to the top, from the top to the ground, or is it kind of like the Eiffel Tower where it stands on its own? I was just curious that way. They have a kind of a drawing in the package that the tower structure, excuse me, on page 90, bottom right-hand corner. So I just wondered, are there going to be guidelines and like just to hold it in place? That's all. If anyone knows that answer.
I see Darren's going to try to address that one.
I'm going to address it. I don't know if I can answer. I looked at their report too, and I didn't see anything that said one way or another. There's been a couple in the last few years that have gone up that are similar. One does have guy wires and one does not. So
it can go either way.
That's right.
Okay. No, I was just curious. That's all.
I think it's a 45 meter tower. That may not. That sounds like a lot, but that's not as high as a lot of towers are. So I think that may be freestanding without the support. Given the location shown on the picture, I would think the neighbors might be not too happy with wires going into their property because that's what would be happening.
Well, that was my kind of leaning towards my next question is with the Guider Club right there. What's
yeah, on the next application
had to be given to that as well. And I see NavCan approved it, or they're in front of NavCan, I suppose. So they'd have to cross those bridges, I guess, with them as well, so. No, that was kind of the gist of my questioning, because it's so close to the Guider Club. If there's wires, it's a pretty bad recipe.
Yeah, so for our next one, which deals with the one near the York Soaring Club, I had some questions on that as well, but specifically to this one at line 6, did you have
Sorry.
anything further, Steve?
No, that's good. Sorry, thank you. I jumped ahead there, sorry.
No, that's okay. Sherry, did you have questions, comments?
No.
Mike, I see you're itching here.
Not really itching. I just want, there's uniqueness as it relates to these telecommunications towers. We really, and Darren will either correct me or agree, we really have no approval authority over the towers. This is a federal approval and we're basically notified. Hey, guess what? We're going to put some towers, and typically it's very good news, but we're not provided any further details. We're not considered an approval authority or even a commenting agent as it relates to these telecommunications towers. So it's kind of unique in that way to a certain degree.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I know that I was approached about the other application that we're about to talk about. And I told the person that this is really between NAV Canada and CRTC because they're the approval authorities. And I hope that I was 100% right with that. I was pretty confident, but I wasn't 100% sure. But it's certainly NAV Canada does play a role because of airplanes flying in the air. And CRTC is the big player with this because it's a communications event. So, any other questions in regard to this application? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll move on and deal with the other one. This is a recommendation here. This is for the one on 5th line. That the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive ExploreNet correspondence dated July 12th, 2021 regarding proposed 45 meter self-support tower at 7239 5th line. It says Center Wellington here, but I'm pretty sure that's Township of Wellington North. Need a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Lisa, seconded by Steve, and we'll open the floor for discussion again. Steve?
I don't know if I need to repeat myself, but yeah, I can't imagine the gliding club, York gliding club would be too happy with this if it had wires, but I guess we'll find out when they start to build it, if there's going to be guide wires or not. I can't imagine there would be guide wires so close to an airport and a guiding club. So that was my only concern, and I know we can't really comment on it or have any jurisdiction over it. So that was my only comment.
Okay, Karen?
Their entire submission refers to this site as being in Center Wellington. So they're, I don't know, do we ask for them for a corrected one? I mean, we know where it is. But their subject line is Center Wellington. It asks where it'll be located. It says Center Township of Wellington North. So just so that's on the record.
Yeah, I don't think it's our place to correct them in their notice, but they do get a mailing list from us, and we did supply them with that. So the mailing list of properties within the correct area.
But they would have notification requirements in Center Wellington too, would they not, Darren?
Yes, they would. So they would have contacted both townships for some mailing lists.
I would just suggest then that the recommendation refer to not Center Wellington, but Wellington North.
Yes, I think we should. So is everybody okay with us just striking out the Center Wellington portion of this?
Well, I think that makes sense. Kind of an odd overlook from a communications company, but
Well, it's very close to the border, so
yeah.
I can see how it could happen. Any other questions or comments in regard to this? I know that the York Soaring people have already registered some objections. I'm not sure they've, and it was through a second party or third party, I guess I should call it. And I said, they need to talk to NAV Canada and CRTC because we don't have the authority, but here it is on our agenda. I was feeling a little foolish. But it's good to have that reconfirmed. But certainly, you know, it is a concern for, you know, that airfield, that to make sure that we look after the safety is looked after for those airplanes and gliders. Any other questions, comments? Okay, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to 3A. This is the EDO report on Digital Main Street. And the recommendation is as follows: that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report EDO 2021-23 Digital Main Street. Could I have a mover and a seconder for that, please?
Go ahead.
Moved by Steve, seconded by Lisa. And with that, I'll open the floor for questions or comments. Lisa, go ahead.
Just comments, basically. The reason I asked to have this pulled is, you know, anything that we can do to help our businesses all the time, but especially now, deserves more exposure. Sometimes people don't seem to latch on to some of these opportunities. So I was going to try to throw Dale under the bus and see whether he could talk about it a little more, and ask why it says not for release on the top of that.
Great.
I think I caught you at something.
So Dale, now that you're thoroughly caught off guard, go ahead.
No problem. Yeah, this is kind of the third round of Digital Main Street, so it's getting a little bit repetitive, but what it also underscores is there's absolutely no reason for any business in our community to not have had a chance to reach out for support under the Digital Main Street program. I think under round 2, we had 20 businesses that applied for the $2,500 grant and were approved. So 20 businesses that applied and were approved for the $2,500 grant. And they can use those grant funds to assist with anything along the lines of social media or setting up a website or anything. The advantage of this program under round 3 is that it no longer has to be a main street business. So up until now, the businesses only qualified if they were a main street business within the BIA area. So now, as long as they have a physical presence somewhere and are registered in the province of Ontario, or registered federally or provincially, then they are eligible for grant funding and for support this time around. So we've hired our Digital Main Street coordinator back, who was with us for the second go round, Ashley Noble. So she knows the community very well. And yeah, we look forward to getting some more funding and some more support out there to our businesses.
Okay, any other questions or comments? I'd just like to add that I've had the opportunity in the last little while to talk to a few of our Main Street type businesses, you know, or commercial businesses that have been severely affected by some of the restrictions related to our COVID-19 pandemic. And I have to admit that, you know, I'm sure they're suffering hardship, real serious hardship. And, you know, we didn't get into the details of that, but I am also really encouraged by their sense of resilience and willingness to plug through and make it work going forward. And I think this is wonderful that we have a tool that we can try to help them along with that, not only for just getting through the pandemic, but for their future improvement of their businesses and greater versatility of their businesses going forward. So I look forward to this type of opportunity, and hopefully the people that need it can take it up, to take advantage of it and make good use of it for now and for the future. Dale?
Emmer Lennox, if I could just take the opportunity to talk about that a bit too, because our businesses have been tremendously resilient. And what's also been interesting, though, we did a survey along with the Saugeen Economic Development Corporation, And we purposely surveyed new businesses because it's been amazing the number of new businesses that have taken this opportunity to start up in our community. We've had over 15 new businesses start up in the last year during COVID, and that's pretty amazing. And also when you look at Main Street or downtown Arthur, and we've had a lot of discussions with some developers and that from a commercial development perspective, I don't think there's any commercial properties in Arthur that are currently available. There may be some that are empty or are being renovated, but there are none that are available for rent. So that's both a positive sign and a negative sign. It's a positive sign that our main street is fairly full. It's a negative sign that we don't have the capacity to be able to necessarily grow our downtown. And in Mount Forest, it's not a lot different. We only have 1 or 2 buildings on our main street that are not currently occupied. So, I think that sector is bouncing back, and hopefully they'll continue to bounce back as we continue to reopen. But totally agree, any support we can give them. The community improvement program has been hugely or very active just in the last 2 to 3 weeks as businesses start to ramp up as well. So lots happening.
Thanks, Dale. Steve?
Yeah, I'm just going to kind of echo what has been said here. And I think the word resilient is thrown around, and it's an appropriate word for that. And then I would also add how our businesses have reinvented themselves as well over the last 18 months. And trying to hit a moving target like this, I think with the Economic Development Department, I think any support that we can give is greatly appreciated. And I mean, even from like a customer's point of view as well, getting into the store, getting out and getting into a store, and the sidewalk sales that we have in both communities are just hugely successful. So it's we owe a lot to our business community for sure.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, I was thinking of an example of what you're just describing, an opportunity to reinvent themselves in a different way that maybe they needed to do anyway, and this just gave them the additional incentive to do so. So I think it's that part of it is really quite remarkable, given the difficulties of the past year. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll call a motion then. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay. I guess that's the end of our items, isn't it? We're on to notice of motion this afternoon. Anybody have a notice of motion this afternoon? Okay. Seeing no others, I'm going to propose one. I'm going to suggest that we ask, I'm going to make a motion that request staff to write a report related to cannabis operations and our planning situation to see if what we can do to hold off these types of applications until we get better information on where we can locate them, how we can appropriately locate them, and make sure that we're not caught in a situation like the situation in Arthur at Wells Street. So at the next meeting, we'll be looking for a seconder to see if we can ask staff to throw some ideas towards us to help us with that. Karen?
Can I just see if I've got the gist of what you're saying? You're going to make a motion at the next meeting to request staff to bring a report to council on cannabis operations as to where they can be appropriate located and zoning implications?
Yeah, and can we pause them in the meantime till we get that information?
Zoning implications as well as holding provisions?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep, that sounds reasonable.
Thank you.
Steve?
I can second that notice of motion.
Well, we'll wait till next meeting, but thanks for
Okay,
that.
sorry, I
Steve.
thought you needed someone to put that on the
Nope.
table for next one. Sorry,
No, we'll let you do that next time round.
maybe.
Okay, any other notice of motion this afternoon? Okay, so we'll move on to community group meeting program report. Anybody have anything they'd like to discuss this afternoon? Steve?
Just have a quick one. We have Rec Park and Leisure Committee meeting tomorrow, and usually they are at 8:30, but with some scheduling conflicts, we're doing it at 4 p.m. tomorrow. For those have the time and the availability, we'd love to have you join us. That's all I've got for you, Mayor Lennox.
Just to
Okay,
note
thanks,
that
Steve.
on the agenda under upcoming meetings, it does say 8:30 a.m. That was a typo, so it, as Steve had just indicated, is at 4 p.m.
Okay. Thanks for that. Anybody else have anything they'd like to report? Community group meeting? Lisa, go ahead.
Not really a whole lot to report. I have a few meetings coming up this week, chamber meetings. I tend to get agendas for them sometimes pretty late. A lot of talk about the Arthur BIA budget, some emails about that going around. And of course, my BMX people will be at the rec meeting tomorrow. And I did want to ask a question. How is everyone's Mets pumpkin doing? Because I have been so super busy right now. I took on a lot more responsibilities because I was kind of getting depressed over COVID and everything. So mine, I didn't even look at it. It's completely out of control. Like I have so many pumpkins. I was out cutting. Anyway, how are they doing?
No
This was
comment.
last night. I'm like, I'm just cutting vines like crazy.
Well, congratulations, Lisa. I feel like I have a green thumb. I know I have a green thumb. My pumpkins were dug out twice by the squirrels. So I'm out.
I do not have a green thumb. I planted it in a pile of manure and walked away. This is what happened. I have one for everyone.
Might have to use yours. I have a lot of male flowers, but no female flowers on mine so far, but looks pretty.
Well, I thank you for your efforts, Lisa, because I didn't get mine planted, so.
Well, there's a note in the Cultural Roundtable minutes from Bonnie that their pumpkins are growing very well, so you may have some competition, Lisa.
Do we get an award for the number of pumpkins, I wonder?
I'd be happy with one.
Okay. Any others, Lisa? Sherry, did you have anything you wanted to report?
I
today?
just wanted to give council an update with regards to the aquatics pool swag. My understanding is from the two gals that are looking after this portion of the fundraising, it's on its way and it should be ready for Saturday for the sidewalk sale event. So bring your money, Steve.
Is Steve buying for all of us?
Sure, why not?
Thank you, Jerry.
Okay, anything else? And thanks, Sherry, for reminding us about the sidewalk Saturday coming up. I was on my list as well, but yeah, looking forward to, I think the weatherman is still being cooperative, so that's good. I would also add too that, you know, the sign of the times that maybe COVID problems are moving into the rearview mirror, or let's hope to continue that. The thrift shop in Mount Forest in their new location is having their grand opening later this week at 10 a.m. on Thursday. So I've been invited to attend that, and if you get a chance to swing by and drop in, I'm sure they'd appreciate it. There's a lot of, you know, our committed volunteers that put a lot of effort into that, and it certainly yields a lot of results for our community, and particularly the hospital. So it's a good time to highlight the generous donation of the building to that group, and all the work that goes into setting up in the new location. I wish them certainly all the best for the future. It's fantastic. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else in particular this afternoon myself, so I guess that moves us on to bylaws. We have a couple of bylaws to deal with this afternoon, and the recommendation is that bylaw number 78-21 and 79-21 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. And need a mover and a seconder for that recommendation, please. Moved by Lisa, seconded by Sherry. Any questions or comments in regard to those? I just have one for you, Karen. The remuneration bylaw, we're repealing bylaw 81-16. Does that not need to remain in effect until the end of this term?
The bylaw says it all becomes effective, everything in the bylaw becomes effective January 1st, 2021. And the bylaw 6218 is repealed effective January 1st, 2023.
Okay,
It
so
says
it's
that in
taken
the- so
care of
you're-
through the date.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any other questions or comments in regard to those bylaws? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried, thank you. We don't have the closed session today, correct? Okay, so that moves us on to confirming bylaw already. So I have a recommendation here that bylaw number 80-21 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council August 9th, 2021 council meeting be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. Need a mover and a seconder for that, please. Moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve. All those in favor? That's carried, thank you. And before we move to adjournment, I'll just draw your attention to the in your agenda package, the meetings, notices, announcements. We've talked about a number of these, but I'll just go through them again. As a reminder, the Recs, Parks and Leisure Committee special meeting tomorrow at 4 p.m. The Mount Forest Chamber of Commerce video conference via video conference tomorrow at 7 p.m. The Arthur BMX Skateboard Park is in here as tentative. It's not happening, Lisa?
No, because we're coming to the rec meeting at 4.
Okay. The Arthur Chamber of Commerce meeting is Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. We talked about the shop local sidewalk Saturday on Saturday, 8:30 to 2:30. Our next regular council meeting is the 23rd at 7 p.m. And then the first one in August is September 13th at 2 p.m. And again, reminder, the ongoing farmers market every Saturday till September 25th from 8:30 till noon. And with that, we'll go back to adjournment. We have a recommendation here that the regular council meeting of August 9th be adjourned at 3:23 p.m. So mover and a seconder, please. Lisa and Steve, all those in favor? That's carried. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
have a
Have a great week. Stay cool. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.